this one pattern is keeping you stuck. Have you ever wondered why you keep hitting the wall? Or why you haven't achieved whatever it is that you are trying to achieve? I see this one thing so clearly, and this can be the only thing that is still slowing you down. And after this video, your life will change from where it was to where you want it to go. This one pattern slowed my progress for almost 10 years and put me into a long detour. Luckily, when you start to love the journey, even a detour feels like an adventure. But of course, sometimes you want to go straight to your destiny and take the fastest route possible. If you are currently trying to do something but not having sustainable success, give me the opportunity to guide you in this video. And you will never have to start over and over again. It can be a money goal that you are trying to achieve, or a health goal that you are trying to reach, or something else. I don't know. Whatever it is, I assume that, like me, you are somebody who is already doing things to get where you want to go. And you have tried all kinds of ways to get what you want. If I asked you, what have you tried to achieve your goal? You could probably write me a book about all the things you have already tried. Before I give you the straight answer to what you want to do from here on, I need to remove one block that is driving the pattern. So a pattern is something that repeats over and over again. And if there is something happening over and over again, then the pattern must be changed into a new one. But with this kind of pattern, it is not so obvious because you have heard the quote before. It is pretty stupid to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. Now, although this is very true, if we are not careful enough, we might miss how this can become a mind virus that hides from you. By the way, a mind virus is something that is ingrained in the mind and keeps you in this illusion that you think is good, but is actually bad for your expansion because it wants to protect itself and keep itself alive by tricking you into believing that it knows what is the best. Now, if this goes too deep, I have a gift for you in the comments that will help you open up and get rid of all these hidden limiting beliefs that are running the show without you even knowing it. A limiting belief is simply something that is in some way keeping you where you are or stopping you from accessing more of the power that you have. It is something that you believe to be true, most of the time without even being aware of it. I'm not going to go deep into beliefs today. And actually, if you are interested in getting rid of these limiting beliefs, I have collected a 6-part belief kit for you that gives you a way to really go deep into yourself and open up the code of the matrix. But also, it is not only limiting beliefs. There can also be conflicting beliefs inside you, where one belief is pushing while another one is pulling. And this is hard way of living. But don't worry, just download the belief kit for free and work all of these out of your system. Here is a major revelation that opens the door for you. Why do most people never succeed in life? This is not such a simple thing, but the major reason is because of two fears. And those two fears are conflicting beliefs on a deeper level. One obvious fear is the fear of failure. This fear of failure, as it is called, stops a person from trying new things. Now, fear of failure is a very natural thing to have because no one wants to fail. If there were a certain choice between losing or winning, failing or succeeding, we would always take the winning choice. But the thing is that in life to succeed, most of the time failing is required so that you can adapt and learn. And the faster you fail, the faster you learn. Rarely is a baby born and starts walking without tumbling first. So first it is okay to tumble. It is okay to fall down. It is okay to fail. I never had this problem because I have failed more times than I remember. And I don't think that you have this either. But if you do, then just realize that failing is part of the process. Even the most successful entrepreneurs, athletes, inventors, or let's just say people, fail most of the time. And by failing, I don't mean losing. I mean failing exactly at doing what they were meant to do. Because if you keep failing, there comes a point when you succeed. And you actually automatically learn from failing and adapt. But if you have had this other fear, then it gets ugly. I had this other fear that kept me away from real success and away from becoming a millionaire. No matter how many I am rich affirmations I did, they didn't help. The other fear that keeps people from getting what they want is a huge one and quite controversial. The first time I heard it, I was like, no way. I do not have that. By the way, manifestation or affirmations work when you learn to align yourself correctly. Because no matter how many times you repeat, I am rich in affirmations, if you don't believe it, there is a so-called misalignment. One part of the belief kit is about how to correctly use affirmations and how manifestation works. So you can read about it there as well. And there are 4 levels you need to align yourself on so that the law of attraction works without resistance, which is what everyone is talking about when they say that you have to remove all resistance from your path. It's like a detox. Get yourself clean so the energy can flow through. But the second fear is clever, and it hits the same core as the fear of failure. And by the way, what is the fear of failure trying to actually do? It tries to keep us where we are, because where we are is familiar to us, even if it is not a good place for us. It is still not unknown. And in a way, the unknown is a scary thing in itself. In another way, it is also exciting and necessary because nothing in life stays the same. We can only trick ourselves into thinking that something does not change, but rationally we know that no matter what weekday today is, this exact day has never come before and never will come again. So this moment has never actually been repeated, although some of us like to think that it has. There are at least 7 human needs. 1, certainty. 2, uncertainty. 3, expansion and the longing for new experiences. 4, love and connection. 5, spirituality and self-knowing. 6, contribution. And 7, significance and status. But when we look only at the first 2, certainty and uncertainty, they are kind of opposites. In one way, we want to know how life goes, step by step. In other way, we love surprises and experiencing something new. Going on vacation, listening to new music, reading a new book, or watching a new series, something that is new. So how on earth can we have both in our lives? Well, they are like cold and hot. They are part of the same spectrum. So we need to find a balance between these two. Not too much certainty and order, because life can become too boring. And not too much chaos, because life can become too overwhelming. But of course, even this depends on the level of one's awareness and the clarity one can hold. Even if things seems chaotic to one person, to another, they can be in perfect order. So here is the second fear that keeps people stuck. And after I tell you this, I will also reveal the real reason, the pattern that keeps repeating and which you absolutely want to get rid of forever. The first fear was the fear of failure. And the second fear is the fear of success. Did it land on you? Or was it just me when I heard this? Why on earth would anyone have a fear of success? How on earth can that even be a fear? Okay, now we need to realize that we have this so-called personality that creates our personal reality. And now it depends on that personality, what kind of outcomes you have in life. Like my old personality had these kind of mind viruses. Without going too deep into them, I will just briefly list them here. I am not smart enough to teach or talk about these kind of things. I'm not worthy of X amount of money. And there were others as well. But these kind of beliefs formed a pattern in me, so that every time I was about to achieve a certain goal, a certain amount of money, or a certain level of success, I would back up. So many times, the door was already open, and all I had to do was take a step through that door. But if I had taken that step, it would have meant that part of my personality would have died. If I had become an overnight success or a millionaire, I would have had to drop my old identity, the version of me that was not aligned with who I was becoming. This is why identity work is so important. We can look at our current identity almost as a person with a personality and with a certain set of beliefs. They are all interconnected and constantly reinforcing themselves to exist. And those things create our reality and outcomes in life. But when we start to change these things in our life, the old has to die. Like a snake sheds its skin, or even better said, like a cocoon becomes a butterfly. The caterpillar has to disappear so it can become something new. Of course, there is no such thing as death in that sense, because life energy simply transforms, it transmutes. But for a real human transformation to happen, the experience has to take place. That is why in role-playing games, characters gather experience to level up. And when they level up, they become more powerful. Certainly, growth happens naturally for all of us, but intentional human transformation is something different. It almost cannot be explained because it has to be experienced. When you know how to use your intention in an aligned way to transform yourself from the inside out, life becomes a playground for you. We are all playing the game of life, and this is exactly why I wrote the intention game. Get what you intend. So that the life manual or the cheat code is there. I'm not joking when I say that this is one of the most important things that should be taught in schools and read in homes. At least read it once in your lifetime so you understand how your mind and body work and how to make life work for you instead of against you. In my short lifetime, I have had so many identities. Personal trainer, NLP trainer, wellness business owner, hypnotherapist, marketer, salesman, shaman, growth consultant, investor, among many others. And now I am an author. But most of these identities I have designed on purpose. Because we are here to play and have fun. So why not play the game the way we want to play it? Now, the only reason my identities didn't fully integrate was because of the fear of success, which is better described as the fear of transformation and the fear of uncertainty. The old version of me wanted to hold on. It pulled me back. It kept me stuck. While the idea of a new version didn't yet have enough time or belief to fully transform. But now, I'm going to give you the pattern behind all of this so that you can take your transformation and success to the next level. Have you heard about shiny object syndrome? We as human beings have these so-called psychological biases and there are more than 300 of them. These biases control our behavior. Like when a doctor says something, a person might believe more of the doctor than his friend because of the authority bias. And of course, they should do so, but also they should think and analyze before believing anything anyone says, especially if it is not beneficial. I talk more about placebo studies and effects in the book as well, which make you think twice before believing anyone, no matter if it is the king himself. And for your own sake, my advice to you is to only believe things that are positive or beneficial to you, that empowers your life. But there is this bias called shiny object syndrome. And another that is tied to this is FOMO, fear of missing out, FOMO. This you already know, but what I didn't know was the 3 feet from gold pattern that was running my life. It kept me stuck where I was, although it seemed like I was moving and going forward, because it was such a hideous pattern. It is stupid to do the same things over and over again and expect different results. I couldn't see that my pattern, my stupid thing, was always running after new, shiny objects. First, I built, and then the bigger the game got, I found a way to make excuses not to continue. I found excuses to explain myself and others out of it. I found a way to prove why the thing didn't work or wasn't good to continue. I found a way to lure myself into another more juicy opportunity. At 3 feet from gold is a representative story about how a miner shovels dirt and shovels dirt and shovels dirt after years only shoveling dirt. And one day the gold miner stops shoveling, gives up, and goes home without anything. Time wasted as a loser. But little did he know that in that very moment, if he would have just kept shoveling 3 feet more, he would hit the gold mine and become forever rich. Now, this story has 2 sides in it. First, to become rich, you have to be a gold miner. And the other, you need to keep shoveling. So another way of saying this is, whatever it is that you want, become that person and keep acting as that person acts. If you want a tight swimsuit body or 6 packs, ask yourself, what kind of person do I need to become to have those? Not what I have to do to get those, which is the common mistake some do. But for yourself, think about every individual goal or dream of yours. And before you have it, what kind of person you need to be so that you can do. And when you find the identity, keep acting as if you already have what it has. And then you do the things that person would do and keep doing and doing and doing. If doing is something you don't like about the person, like me being an author and a reality guide, but I wouldn't absolutely love writing and teaching. Well, when I first became an electrician, but hated pulling cables everywhere, what do you think? How happy I was about my identity? No matter how well I could get paid. But if I hated doing the thing, what's the point? So choose wisely who you want to be. And after that, you have. And then you do. Now, I might lose you here a little, but let me briefly explain how things play out in real life. When I was writing the intention game, I put myself in various tests to see how well things would work in the book. I must say that I got a lot better results than I could expect. And nowadays my expectations have grown so huge that today my goals are to build a school that teaches how reality works out and transform over 7 billion people, or actually the whole humankind, into human kindness and empower us as creators. For you, I promise personal freedom. I'm also looking to buy a hotel and win the Nobel Prize. There are more to come as well, but just to start, these are my things I'm putting my intention on. But when I played small and tested the concepts in the book, I made things like visualizing by using the forelock method, that I was holding a rail in my hands. Because in my mind, I was standing on a balcony. At that time, I was in Finland, and it was winter, and snow all around, and dark as well. But in my dreams, I was standing on a balcony, watching the palm trees, and of course, the sea view, feeling the warm sun on my face. And after a year or two, we moved into Spain. And when I stood on the balcony, it was even better than I could ever imagine. But this was nothing. There is so much more into this that I left out. But to be, have, and do, I have a cool story. I tested my book, The Intention Game, and the 4LOC method again and again. What kind of identity would be cool? I asked from myself. As usual, I started creating and playing like a mad scientist or painter. I thought about different identities. A doctor. No, too serious. Too much work. Too much sickness. How do I want to look? I want to have a suit and this and that. And I came up with a growth consultant. I would work with $1 million business owners. And when I work, I only talk with them. And I have a couple of big screens in front of me, so I could feel myself very important. Remember, one of the human needs, significance and status. So I started to write a new website for my new identity so that I could visualize better. And I have done this multiple times to manifest my identity. Put it out there even if no one would see it. But social media is a good place to create, so why not use it as your canvas? We all came here just to play. Now, of course, be interested in what your new identity does. So interested that is the only thing you do. Like when I stepped into the shoes of a growth consultant, I read every business book there was. I made sure I knew more than 99% about different growth strategies. But here is the craziest part. I became first a growth consultant. But at the time, I didn't have a job. So I was looking for a job. Didn't find any growth consultant roles. But close enough, I found a sales job in a marketing agency. But now comes the crazy part. My job was to talk with business owners with revenue over 1 million, many times tens of millions. They sent me a laptop into Spain, a fully remote job. And with the laptop, they wanted me to have this big screen. So I could have two screens and work with them. Then I would love to say a crazy thing happened, but because of what I know, it wasn't even crazy. But I said, I want to be a growth consultant. So the firm changed all the sales team department names to growth consultants. Now I was working as a growth consultant from my home with two screens, talking with business owners, and I had a lot of fun just as I imagined it to be. So first I became, then I got the place, then equipment, the job, and after that I do. First you be, then you have, and after that you do. First I became an author. Then I had my phone, and then I wrote, just like I imagined it to be. Easy, fun, me and my phone or some paper and pen. I love writing and spreading transformational stories through social media. And I wish that you had a lot of fun as well. Let me know what kind of things you would want to know more about. I read and respond to every comment by myself as soon as possible. And I hope you got the main message here. That was this. No matter what you are doing, if you are happy and believe that you are doing the right thing, keep going and doing. You are 3 feet from gold. The quitters never win and the winners never quit. Subscribe, like, comment, download the free gifts that I have for you in the description. By the way, and this is exactly where the whole thing becomes visible in a way that you cannot unsee anymore. Because once you begin to recognize this pattern inside your own life, you start to notice that it was never about lack of effort. It was never about lack of ideas, and it was never even about lack of capability, but rather about the subtle moment where something inside you shifts just before things begin to truly move, just before things begin to open, just before the result starts to reflect back what you have been building. And in that exact moment, instead of staying, instead of allowing the process to complete itself, something in you begins to search again, begins to question again, begins to move again. And because that movement feels intelligent, because it feels like growth, because it feels like you are making a better decision, it becomes almost impossible to see that you are not actually progressing forward, but repeating the same loop from a different starting point. And what makes this even more complex is that the mind is incredibly good at justifying this movement. It gives you reasons that sound logical. It gives you explanations that sound reasonable. And it creates a story where leaving becomes the right thing to do, where shifting becomes the smart move, where starting something new becomes the evidence of evolution. And yet, if you were to step outside of that moment and observe the pattern from a distance, you would see that the only thing that keeps changing is the form, while the core behavior remains exactly the same. And that behavior is not the inability to succeed, but the inability to remain long enough in one identity for it to fully form into reality. Because the truth is that nothing meaningful happens instantly, even when it looks like it does, because what appears as an overnight success is always the result of a long period of unseen continuation, period where nothing seemed to happen, where no clear validation was given, where doubt could easily enter and where most people would have already left. And this is the exact phase where identity is either solidified or abandoned. Because identity is not something that is declared once. It is something that is reinforced over time through consistent alignment, through repeated action, and through the willingness to stay, even when the external world has not yet caught up with the internal shift. And this is why the idea of doing more is often misleading, because it directs attention toward action without addressing the foundation from which that action is coming. And if the foundation is unstable, if the identity is not fully accepted, if there is still a hidden hesitation about becoming that next version of yourself, then no matter how much you do, there will always be a moment where you pull yourself back, where you interrupt the process, where you unconsciously return to what feels familiar. Not because it is better, but because it is known. And the unknown, even when it contains everything you want, still carries a level of uncertainty that the mind is not always willing to tolerate. So instead of continuously asking what else you could do, what else you could try, what else you could start, or what else you could change, the more accurate question becomes whether you have actually stayed long enough in what you have already chosen, whether you have allowed yourself to fully step into that identity without escaping it at the first sign of discomfort, and whether you have given the process the time it naturally requires to transform from something internal into something visible. Because when you truly remain, when you allow the identity to stabilize, when you stop interrupting the process with constant movement, something begins to shift in a way that no external action alone could create. And that shift is not dramatic. It is not sudden, but it is undeniable. Because your thinking begins to align. Your decisions begins to align. Your actions begin to align. And slowly, the external world begins to mirror that internal consistency, not as a reward, but as a natural consequence. And this is the moment where most people misunderstand what is happening. Because from the outside, it looks like things suddenly started working, while in reality, nothing suddenly changed. Everything simply reached the point where continuation had been sustained long enough for the result to become visible. And this is why the difference between those who eventually reach what they aim for and those who remain in constant motion is not in how much they start, but in how deeply they are willing to stay. So when you look back at your own path and you begin to see all the moments where you were already close, where the direction was already right, where the identity had already started to form, and yet something pulled you away just before completion. You can also begin to see that the distance between where you are and where you want to be has never been as large as it seemed. It has simply been interrupted too many times. And if there is one thing to take from all of this, it is not that you need to find something new, but that you need to recognize where you have already gone far enough to continue. Because very often the gold is not hidden somewhere else. It is exactly where you decided to stop digging. And the only difference between leaving empty-handed and reaching it is whether you choose to remain just a little longer with a little more awareness and with a clear understanding that this time you are not restarting, you are continuing. Subscribe, like, comment, download the free gifts that I have for you in the description. Okay, take care. See you.